Hello, everybody. Welcome to the C.A.N Report. Mike Goldstein, stickers, coming at you with Jake Poulin from the Keene area, Keene Fire Department. I am happy to have this guy on today. He is super knowledgeable, super passionate, and loves the fire service and everything about it. So today we have Jake Poulin. His bio is awesome. His experience is awesome. He's been in it for quite some time. Jake Poulin has always wanted to be a fireman since he was small. He started hanging at the firehouse at 14 years old in Swanzey. He joined the Keene Explorers for extra time. Swanzey Call Department at 18. Graduated high school and went to LRCC for fire service. LRCC is Lakes Region Community College. And he went there for fire science. He was a live-in student with Gilmanton Fire for a semester and a half. Got hired full-time with Belmont Fire when he was 20 and right before last semester of college. He finished the degree online and graduated in 2015. He moved on to Keene Fire in 2018 to be closer to his family. He was promoted to lieutenant of June of 2024. His total time in is 12 years. He has 10 years on the job next month. Passion is the basics of firemanship, hose and nozzles, ground ladders, and search. Man, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Jake Poulin, for being a part of my program. Love having another New Hampshire guy on here. That's what it's all about. And I know you've been tooling around, doing a lot of training, presentations. You just had one up. Why don't you just talk about the that lecture you were just at? What was that about?
Yeah, so we just did the Smooth Pours and Smooth Bores event put on by Jake Poulin up in Lebanon, and it was a really good event. I was pretty nervous, kind of like presentations and like PowerPoint isn't really my strong suit, as most of us, right? We're usually pretty confident and a lot more educated on the hands-on portion of things. So trying to get better at that. But it was a good event. There was like 12 of us there. We talked a lot about expectations, and setting expectations is the big one, obviously. I feel like a lot of us in this new fire service or fire service, that's all we really want, right? We want to know how to meet and exceed these expectations, and we can't do that if they're not given to us. So we talked a lot about that, talked a lot about tactics, and we had people from, that ride a 2-person engine to they're showing up to a building fire with 3 engines and a truck. So it was very good to see the difference in tactics, and we talked a lot about fire rescue survey. And they just published new information with 4,000 rescues. So we talked a lot about that. And so it was a really good event. Jake Poulin does a great job putting that on. And it's all like out of his own pocket through donations that he does it.
Wow.
So yeah,
that's awesome that he puts it on his own pocket. Is he on the job in Lebanon, or is he from that area?
Yeah, nice. He's on the job in Lebanon. He actually lives in Keene.
Wow, that's a commute.
Yeah. I've actually, there's actually quite a few people in Lebanon who live in this area, and we're always like, what are you doing? But the drive's not that bad. It's really not.
Okay. Yeah, people are always surprised when I'm driving from Milford to Derry. They always have the shock face that, my God, I can't believe you commute that, And I said, I'm only working 2 days a week, and it's only a 40-minute drive. That's okay.
Right. Yeah, that's not bad.
So that's great. So is that your first time presenting, actually doing a lecture?
Nope, my second time.
Okay, nice.
So first time was at the Lakes Region Fire Symposium.
That's right.
A few months ago. And there I just did a presentation on the basics, right? Going over hose loads, hose pulls, ladder throws, that kind of stuff. I was fortunate enough to work in that area. So I was able to get, Belmont Fire to donate a ladder for the day so we can go over some stuff outside and all that stuff. But
so you mixed it up. So you did a presentation inside and then you went outside and did some basics.
Yeah.
That's cool. At least you don't bore them with the power slides. And
yeah, that's like one of my biggest fears as an instructor is just putting a PowerPoint up there and just jabbering on, and which is tough too, because I think the more people in the class, the less discussion you're going to have. Because, it's human nature, right? You don't want to open your mouth and seem stupid.
Oh, absolutely.
It's human nature.
It's easier when you have props in your hands, right? It's easier when you have a nozzle and a hose or a ladder and you're in gear. People seem to be more engaged when they're actually in the drill yard than sitting in a chair and watching somebody drone on in front of them. So I'm sure it's pretty tricky to keep them engaged and want to actually listen because, our minds start to wander and the phones are in our hands and we're halfway paying attention. And I've never actually done presentations. I've never built my own power slide. I've never done a standing up and talking about anything and everything in front of a crowd. It's usually at the drill yard, and it's way easier to do that. And then instead of having people stare at you and waiting for something. So
Yeah.
props to you, man. That's good.
Yeah.
So do you have anything else lined up for that?
Nothing lined up as of right now, which is kind of nice for the holidays coming.
Yeah.
So we can kind of just focus on family life and, live that for a
Good.
while. And, but, and, I think the tough part, especially owning a private training company, is, breaking into these small departments, right? Because when I made the training company, that's my goal, is to get into these small call departments to offer them training that they may not receive otherwise. So, but it's hard to break into them, because you got to treat it like a business, right? You got to get paid. Because if you're taking time away from, the family and your job, you have to make it up somewhere.
Yeah.
So you have to get paid and you have to treat it like a business, which is the hardest part about this, because I want to go to these places for free and just, spread the good word, and you can't.
That's difficult. Yeah. Tell me about your company. What's the name of the company?
So the name of the company is Jake's of All Trades Training and Consulting. We do, hose line, search, ladders, just the basics. I am not a tech rescue guru. That is not who I am. So I'm not going to put myself in that arena. I pride myself on being good at the basics, and because it's been proven, right? If you look at the best engine companies in the big cities, right, that's all they do is the basics.
Yeah.
So if we can be good at that, that'll transfer into the, tech rescue world or special operations world, where if you have a good foundation, we can pretty much do anything that we want, in that world. So, yeah, we just focus on the basics, and I love it. I wish we were busier, but is what it is right now.
Now, when you say we,
time.
how many people do you have with you?
I have a lot of really good friends who have offered to help teach with me. Varying experience ranges, right, from that 1 to 2 year guy all the way up to the 10, 15 year guy. So and it's all depend on what we're going to teach, right? I'm not going to take my buddy who works in a truck company and have him teach hose. Right. So I have a very wide array of people that I can pull from to help me teach and do that. Because that's the other thing too, is, a lot of these drill nights and these small departments are being put on by one person. Well, if you have 20, 30 people and one instructor, that doesn't work.
No, it doesn't.
Right? You need a cadre of people to, spread the good word and be on the same page as you. So that way your message is delivered to all 20 or 30 people.
Yeah.
Right?
Especially when you have to break down those skills and do this step-by-step process, right? The crawl, walk, run method is, you can't do that with just one person. When you said the 30 people is just they're not going to get the reps in.
Right.
I love it.
And yeah. So that's, I probably have, 15 dudes just ready to go,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. So where did it come from? Where did you see the necessity? Was it something that you saw firsthand, or you just kind of had the brainchild of, hey, I want to start a training company to help out the smaller communities, the smaller departments that don't have the necessity for an actual training officer or getting those skills in?
Yeah. So, I think it came a lot from just going to trainings, right? I've been to quite a few trainings put on by Northeast Squad Concepts. Those guys do a great job. Dave Quick doing his own thing a lot. You see that, and this southwest corner of the state is kind of like no man's land, right? There's nothing around here. It's an hour drive to Concord. It's pretty much an hour drive anywhere you want to go.
Yep.
But there's in Keene's the only full-time department, in this area. So, my thought process was, well, if, these guys are having great success with their private training companies, I think it's a need and a want that's there for people, why not try it? The worst part is you try it and say it doesn't work. Okay, cool. Great.
Yeah. Now, are you a state and staff instructor as well for the state? Yeah. Have you, with your company, reached out to see if you can helping with the Learn on Your Own Time project that they have going on?
So I haven't reached out yet. I have done a class for Nancy Carney, is over in Peterborough, and she was helping a on your own Fire One class through Peterborough.
Hmm.
So I did do like a hose class for them. So I have helped out with that portion, but not so much at the state level, just because I don't fully quite understand the concept of it yet.
I was just
So
going to ask, what do you think of the concept of? So, for the people who don't know, the Learn on Your Own Time is a new learning process, a new online education that the New Hampshire Fire Academy came up with for people that are wanting to become firefighters. They can actually go online and start a whole profile and start doing the online learning modules. They can take all those classes online on their own time, and I believe it's free. And then when they're ready, they reach out to the state to do the hands-on portions to get signed off on that. And then they need a state instructor or a staff instructor, and they can meet up with them and do the requirements that are on that skill level sheet and get that signed off. And then they can move forward to become Fire 1, Fire 2 certified. It's still kind of new in its concept. And I think they're, honestly, my point, my opinion is that I think it's still in the infant stage of things. I think there's a lot of stuff that needs to be worked out. And I think a lot of people are having difficulties learning how this whole program works. And then especially the students where they're at times left in limbo because they don't know how to get a hold of somebody, or the props or the required equipment is not available to them to finish that process. So they finish everything online, and then they're just sitting there waiting to do the flashover simulator. They're waiting to throw ladders. They're waiting to, and some of these people who are doing these online classes, Jake, they don't have the equipment there. These are people who aren't on a department. They're not affiliated with anybody. So how are they supposed to get the signed off when they don't have gear? They don't have a station to use a ladder or to pull a hose line.
right, yeah, I think that's the tough part. I mean, even for that Peterborough group that was going through it, they've been in the class they've been doing the class, for 6-7 months, and they're still just like in that limbo period of waiting to go do fire behavior, waiting to go do this, waiting to go do that. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the tough part in it, where your traditional, satellite class, right, that is all laid out for them.
Yeah.
So it's still in its infancy stages, so there's ways to improve it. And as we all know, the way things move at the state level is always slow. So
Yes.
I think there's a way to make it, beneficial, right? I think if we reach out to them, and kind of set it up, and be the contact person, I think it could be more beneficial than a normal satellite class, because they're doing all of their classwork online, and you can still set up a class night to where you teach, the concepts and the whys, and get into the nitty gritty on things of fire behavior and forcible entry and all that stuff. So, I think there is a possibility for it to even be better than, your standard satellite class, because your standard satellite class, you're going to have either 2 or 1 night a week classroom,
Mm-hmm.
And that's 4 to 8 hours a week, right?
Yeah.
So whereas if you can make your own schedule, and then do an 8-hour day on a weekend, or 2 4-hour nights and then an 8-hour day on the weekend, and you can really get into stuff and learn, not necessarily just the book way, but the on the job way as well, right? The high shoulder carry and raising it is in the book, right? But even in recruit school, those students may do it 5 times, to
Yeah.
whereas if you do it on your own, right, you can learn the book way and then spend the majority of your time doing it the real way.
Absolutely. I think too with the online portion, like you said, like to get both the in class and the online portions, you're getting double duty on education, but they're only reading that material online, and there's 1,000 questions that I know that they have. When I get them in the drill yard and have done the online modules, they don't know the why. They just know what they read, and then they try to apply it on the drill yard. And that's usually when hopefully I get those questions, because I love getting the questions, and that's what we're here for. And they don't know why they're doing it, and they just literally put up a ladder, or they talked about throwing the tips into the window and taking the window out with the tips of the ladder, and then going into to do VEIS. But they don't know the whys or the pros and cons of it. There's obviously, when you're If you want to go ahead and vent with the ladder, that's great. Have the manpower to do it, because if it's just the two of you and you're not masked up and ready to go, or if it's just one person, literally, then that was some of the things that they came up. And when we were doing ladders, is it was one person throwing a ladder, and they said, "Yeah, I'm supposed to throw it in the window and break the window with the tips." I said, "That's fine and great, but if it's just you, how are you going to do all that? You've just created that flow path. They don't even know about the flow path. They just knew to throw the tips into the ladder, break the window, and then eventually I'll mask up and get up there and do something." But so that's all they knew, was throwing it into the window. But they didn't know the pros and cons, the whys. Why should we do it, or why should we not do it? And how to mask up quickly. And if you're going to now create a flow path, you need to make sure you're damn well ready to go up that ladder and do a search, or even just entering the window. Those are a lot of things that they just took online, but they didn't know how to do the actual stuff. And then they come to us and say, "Hey, yeah, I need to get checked off on throwing ladders." Well, it's not just as simple as that. I'm not just going to make you throw a ladder into the building and say, "Yep, okay, you did it." I want you to understand why, like you just said, the real world. I think sometimes we definitely, the curriculum, as we all know, hurts us in the fire service, because we're just checking boxes. We're not showing them the way, or a way to do it, and the whys behind it. And I think we get so curriculum based that we have to check the boxes to make them pass their class, that we're not teaching the actual real world application of this job. And then when they come to fire departments where they want to work full time, it's an eye-opening experience. Or that fire department gets pretty pissed off, because they expect them to have at least those minimum requirements to understand why they're doing these, and then they come to us in fire departments, and we get pretty pissed off, because why don't you know how to do any of this? Why don't you know the whys behind it? Well, I was just checking the boxes.
Right. And I think you're seeing that a lot, even in the fire department now, regardless of where you work. The turnover rate is huge. Everybody has a ton of new guys, which means a lot of probie manuals, right?
Yeah.
Stuff to get signed off. And I see it, quite a bit where I work, is you just have people who want to check the boxes, get it done, and then move on, right? They care about the why, but not enough to delve into it, right?
Yep.
They just want to be checked off, get off probation, and be good to go. But you need to know the why behind what you're doing to be successful.
Yeah.
Otherwise you're gonna fail, and that goes back to setting expectations, right? If you don't have a set of expectations, of knowing the why, or why are we going to do this? We're doing this because of this, and having the why behind the expectation, then you're just going to have failure after failure after failure.
Right. Fully involved. Right. Mark says it, right? I don't know if you ever listened to his lectures, Mark Van Appen, but he clearly states about expectations. Now, when he started in California, and he was so amped up and ready to work and get on the truck and do stuff, but one thing that was missed was the expectations of what his officer wanted him to do when he got off that truck and going into a burning building. And he has a great way of putting things. He has it's kind of comical but real world stuff. And the biggest thing that wasn't set for him, and he made it very clear, was the expectations. And I definitely think that falls to the wayside a lot. And I think I've seen it more and more today than it has been years ago. That I think the first thing that needs to be settled or stated was the expectations, whether you walk right through that door, or it's their first time working on that rig, or even in the ambulance. The expectations, or you're supposed to be doing. We've taught you've learned how to be a firefighter from the academy, but now you're doing real world shit, and you need to have those expectations set by your company officer or the senior man.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm glad you brought up the ambulance part of it too, because we talked about that on Monday night at the last event. Was the expectations thing. It's not just coming down from the company officer or the ship commander or whatever, right? It's firefighter to firefighter, or medic to AEMT, that kind of stuff. If you set if you go to a chest pain call and as the medic, you want the 12 lead in the first 5 minutes, well, that gives that AEMT or whoever is there, the engine company or whoever, a goal, right, to meet or exceed, right? And if they don't meet it, well, then that's when a conversation happens after the call, right? Like, hey guys, we really need to do this better, blah, 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 blah. This is how, and that stuff. And that's the other thing too with expectations, is if they're not set, or you don't have expectations, is how do you improve?
Mm-hmm.
Right? If we set expectations and we don't meet them, right? Well, that is okay. That's areas that we can train on to improve to meet those expectations. So a lot of people just kind of brush it off of like, oh yeah, it's expectations, right? The shift commander wants us out there at 7 a.m., blah, 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 right? But why does he want you out there at 7 a.m.,
Mm-hmm.
right? He wants you out there so that way when you get that, nasty car wreck at 7:05, right? Your shit's on the rig, ready to go, and you don't have to run to your gear grid, which is, in a lot of people have new stations now, right? So it's 100 feet, 150 feet away from the rig. You're not busting ass to get there. You miss a piece of equipment and all this stuff, right? It's, that's why. So,
Yep.
it's a pet peeve of mine. And, I've been a lieutenant for 6 minutes. But, every shift we talk about those expectations on
Yeah.
fires and, motor vehicle accidents. We talk about them every shift because then that conversation then goes to tactics,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we talk about tactics. We talk about, okay, what do you got with this shown? What are you going to do in it? And it grows a conversation from a, 3-minute, hey guys, this is what I expect, to, what are your thoughts on this? What, and what are you going to do? And it goes into 30 minutes sometimes, which is, beneficial for everybody involved.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll bring it back again to fully involved, where when he started his department, when he was younger, the expectations was they told him about what the coffee needs to be and how you clean the toilets and where the mops are. And, they gave him all those expectations and knowledge of how to do some housekeeping and keep the coffee going. But the expectations of getting off the rig and, your next job after getting off the rig is supposed to be, that wasn't laid out. And in my experience as well, that, man, everyone could tell you where the broom is, and everyone could tell you where the mop is, and what kind of circular path you're supposed to scrub the toilet. But when it came to doing other things, that was missed, because in their mindset, especially from probies teaching other probies or people who just recently got off probation, that's what they remember was chores. We need to make sure those are done. That was their expectations. That's what was keep being relayed down to probationary firefighter was chores. We need to make sure those are done. We need to make sure they're done correctly. But everything else was kind of thrown to the wayside. And it's gotten better, I think, from me, from my position where I'm at now. It's definitely gotten a lot better, where, the expectations are set. The people that do the recruits that we have at our department, he does a fantastic job. Will Tallheimer, he's very into the craft. He's very into the service and leaving it better than we found it. And he makes sure to let the guys know, like, it's not just scrubbing toilets, but this is knowing where your equipment is, getting your equipment staged, ready to go. Like you said, like, not go running to the lockers. Like, I want your gear staged, set, ready to go at a moment's notice. Just because you're doing this recruit class, you never know, a call might come in, but I want you to be ready. I want you to make me proud. And that's one thing he always said is, I want you to make me proud. And, I think that's a great expectation, honestly, that an officer should set with his crew, especially with a new recruit, is I want you to be proud of me, but I want you to make me proud. And it's like it's like a Papa Bear thing, right? Like, we all want that pride in our service, but when our guys and succeed, from starting from scratch, and you get compliments of either how they acted on the scene or how they're performing at the station, that leaves you happy and prideful. And those expectations, that's where it comes from. If you setting those goals and expectations, that's that prideful moment when you see them following your expectations, especially as an officer, and go, man, that's what it's about, leaving it better than we found it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can also, I like to go into a different side of it, of like personal accountability, right? Is if you don't do these things, right, and we get that run or whatever, how are you going to feel about yourself?
Yeah.
In right, Will says, make me proud. Well, what about yourself, right? Make yourself proud.
Mm-hmm.
Make yourself, personally accountable, so that way, when that run does come in, you're set up for success, right? Your hoods, where your hood is, right? Whether you set it up on your coat or in your boot or however you set it up, right? You're set up for success and set up to be on the truck in under 30 seconds.
Absolutely, man. You're right. It is pride with what your performance is, pride of how you treat others. And I mean, we all know, like, it's a big deal. It's in a lot of people's mottos. It's in a lot of people's, when they talk about the fire service. I think pride is always that big word. It's in every friggin' oral board when you ask a new person when they're
Right.
sitting at that table, and they usually pride is what one of the first things they come up with, and that's great. But you need to make sure that you're actually following up with it, and we want to see it. We want you to see that you have pride in yourself and in your work, and I know for myself, and that when I don't perform well, that's a pride thing, and I get down on myself, and I'll replay that in my head and make sure I can perform better next time, and work on the mistakes that I made so I don't repeat them, because I'm proud of what I do. I'm proud of my performance, and I don't want to let others down because I failed to do something, and I know I should be doing better. And that's why we do this job. It's kind of an alpha personality, and we're very prideful of what we do and how we act. So you nailed it.
Yeah, and I think, and we can take that into another portion of it too, right? Is we mentioned accountability. Expectations also impact accountability because it gives you something to be accountable for. Uh, and I think one part of the fire service today is, accountability of others. And we need to get back to a place where asking or telling somebody, hey, you fucked up on this. Why did you do it like this? It's not coming from a place of demeaning or being a dickhead or an asshole, right? It's a place of wanting each other to be better.
Yeah.
We have, I mean, every fire department has it, right? Oh, that dude's an asshole. He's always up your shit about, leaving the oxygen empty, or, your SCB, he relieved you and your SCBA bottles at 4,000, not 4,500, and he brought it up, right?
Yeah.
Well, he's not being a dickhead to be a dickhead. He's being a dickhead to, bring you to the light and spread the good word of like, hey, dude, an extra 500 PSI is, 15 minutes if you're
Yeah.
just sitting there, So, people need to get thicker skin for sure.
Sure.
And realize like he's not personally attacking me. He's trying to make me better. And I also think that goes the other way too, right? Maybe the message can be a little better, right? Not, hey, asshole, you left your bottle at 4,000, right? It's, hey, dude, like I relieved you this morning. I found your bottle at, 500 PSI, below where it should be. Then go into the study of like, okay, we've done this air drill before, and that 500 PSI, if we're just chilling, waiting for a RIT team, is an extra 15 minutes for them to come get us.
Yep.
And you have, right, that message part, which I have not always been good at, needs to be better as well.
I think that you hit it, and I think that you do need to have a thicker skin for it. I think because if you don't relay that message, it's gonna keep happening. So you find something wrong, what happens? Oh, that fucking idiot! You left my bottle low again, and you fill it, and then you go back to your business, and then it continues to happen. You continue to get pissed off, and then you just grumble the whole time, and they're never gonna know that you're mad about that situation, or that now it's going to make you mad. Instead, before it was just like it was, whatever, I'll just take care of it. And then you're not relaying that message to them. Like, hey, you're starting to irritate me now because now I'm having to do extra to fill this bottle, or to change out batteries of whatever, or, hey, you're leaving my shit uncharged. And you're having now to do extra stuff in your truck checks that you shouldn't have to be doing. And they're never going to learn the issue why. And then, like you said, making the message better of, here's why I need that bottle at 4,500 and not 4,000. This is the data behind it. Here's the numbers. And, like you just said before, it leads into now a conversation about tactics and strategies, and why we do the things the way we do it. And here's the data, and you go on Fire Rescue Survey and start talking about that stuff. And I think that's a better way to deliver it than being pissed off and saying, hey, asshole, you just did this again for the third shift in a row. And now, you're going to be pissed off, and now it's going to be an argument. And I think you're absolutely right. You need a thick skin to hear the message, but you can also deliver it better. But it's hard to deliver a message without being pissed off if you let it continuously build up. So yeah, right away, I think it's better to actually tell them, hey, my bottle's at 4,000. This needs to not be this way, and here's the reason why. And if they want to hear it, great. If they don't, well, there's no reason to get in an argument about it, but hopefully the message is received, like, stop doing it, or it's going to get worse for you.
Yeah, and the message is the biggest part. I think society itself has lost a sense of just being a respectful human being.
Mm-hmm.
And that's trickled into the fire department, right? So, that message needs to be coming from a place of care and love. So that way, it's not received as that, oh, he's just being a dickhead or an asshole, right? So, because the fire service is a microcosm of society. It always has been, always will be, right? The police is the same way, so we we need to be respectful of each other, right? Because at the end of the day, we are all we have for each other.
Yeah,
So,
100%. We're a family,
yeah,
and we need to treat each other with respect because we treat our family members with respect. So we should be doing the same thing. But we since we are family and we have kids and relatives, we sometimes have to educate them and and lay the hammer down.
yeah,
And we have to be the strict parent or the uncle. And I had a conversation. I remember who was with. Actually, I think it was with Eric Wentz, the last podcast I had, and it we don't want to you have that uncle that lays in that disappointment look or speech. I think that is worse than somebody getting angry with you. It's when
absolutely,
somebody you look up to, right? And
yeah,
you want to make them happy and proud, but then you do something that you royally screwed up on, and they come at you with the disappointment speech or look. I mean, that is way worse than getting in trouble. The disappointment, man, that just this sticks you right in the heart. So
yeah,
I always work hard to make sure I'm not disappointing anyone, especially
yeah,
people that I respect, because that's the worst.
yeah, yeah. That's all.
Absolutely.
That is the absolute worst, right? Is if you just get the look and you're
The
like,
look, yeah.
because you fucked up, right?
Yep, yep.
You fucked up, and it's just like, God damn it.
So let's see. So you also you're very into the fire rescue survey, which I think is an incredible source of information. I was actually just looking at today because that article that came out, that's been generating a lot of information and topics and conversations, which I think is fantastic. To be honest with you, the Wakeman fire in
Yeah,
Ohio, that's been going around like wildfire right now with that topic, and the fire rescue survey I think plays a lot in that of why we do the way we do things. And I just literally had to drop some information. I was getting kind of like an online debate with somebody, and I saw an article. I was looking at the article that somebody posted, and this person, his reply back was I believe suicide isn't in the job description. Man, that I got a little pissed off about that, to be honest with you, because no, suicide's not in the job description, but saving lives is. That's that's why we wear our equipment. That's why we have $1 million piece of equipment, our apparatus, and we have hoses and nozzles, and that's why we do what we do, is because we're wearing our armor, and they expect us to go in there and with our armor and rescue the ones they love. And to say, well, suicide's not in the job description, whew, man, that really that pissed me off.
yeah,
And so I had to drop some information to him and I showed him knowledge from the rescue survey. So it's a valuable tool, and it seems like you're pretty passionate about the same thing.
yeah. I think it's a really good piece of information and data if you interpret it correctly. I think it can be interpreted in a bad way. Um, to that dude's point, right? Suicide isn't in the job description. Um, you know, it's all relative and you have to make the data work for you. For us, one of the big slides for me, right, is the pre-knockdown, simultaneous with knockdown and post-knockdown versus survival rates, right? The pre-knockdown and simultaneous is around 64% survival chance. Post-knockdown, it drops to like 44, right? So that is a 20% reduction in a person's survival rate, right? So what does that tell us? And you also have to look at the departments that submit to it too, right? The
Mm-hmm.
majority of the departments who are, with every fire submitting a fire rescue survey, most of them are fighting residential fires, just like 90% of the fire service.
Yeah.
And then you also have to look at your own district, right? I know that in our central district, our 95% chance of going to a fire is going to be a 2.5-story wood frame. And then in District 2, our bread and butter is 1.5 story caper split level.
Yeah.
So you have to look at those things to interpret the data and make it work for you.
Mm-hmm.
And this comes down to the tactics too, right? Is it it doesn't matter, right? You have a basic set of fire ground objectives for every fire, right? Fire attack, search, ventilation, whether that's topside or horizontal, right? Water supply, all that stuff. It doesn't matter how many people you show up to that fire with, those things have to get done. What helps is the more staffing you have, obviously, the more things you can get done at once, right? But like
Yep.
for us, we have to make decisions on what isn't going to get done right away, right? And I think everybody is pretty much on the same page that fire attack and search need to happen right away.
Absolutely.
And with our number of dudes on duty, and even in the call departments, right, you have to search while that line is going to the seat of the fire, because if you don't, right, that person's just going to be in there for longer and longer and longer. There was a movement a while ago of, just get the hand line in, put the fire out, and then search, and I kind of disagree with that, because if you think about it, right, the longer we leave that person in that atmosphere, the worse their chances are. And that goes back to the fire rescue survey. They have it timeline, right? And it's pretty common sense, but the longer the person's in there, the higher the chance that they don't survive.
And how can you stand outside and not know if there's survivable space, right? Like, it's our job to go in there and find it and find them. It's going to be short staffed, and you might have to do some extra work. You're going to have a hand line with you, and you're going to have to search off that hand line. And that's just the name of the game. We have to do that. Like, I ride with three people on the truck. We're going to have to do some incredible things until we get more help.
Yeah.
But that's the job we signed up to do.
Yeah.
And to say suicide isn't in our job description, you're right, it's not, but we still have a job to do. And like you said, you have to kind of figure out what's going to be done and what's not going to be done. And the two things that need to be done is fire attack and search. And, you might not be able to do vent right away. And that's the unfortunate part.
Yeah. Like for us, we don't have like an OV guy.
Right.
Because we just don't have the staffing to support it until it gets there.
Correct.
And this also comes down to the training portion too, where and this goes down to, you can take this down to, fire 1, fire 2. I really hate that in fire 1, fire 2, we teach students to stretch with 4 people on a hand line. It's not realistic anywhere.
No.
And so we train on a 2-person stretch, a nozzleman and a heel guy. And the majority of the time, that heelman is going to be the chauffeur at the threshold of the ideal age, because we know and we've trained that we can stretch 100 feet of hose through 4 to 5 pinch points with the nozzleman, with preloading rooms and stretching hose, and with that chauffeur at the door, we can get 100 feet of hose into a building.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But we have to know our limitations.
And that comes with training. That comes with that knowledge that I know I can do this, because I literally just did this last week on doing hose stretches in the residents that we got to train on. And you're absolutely right, man. You nail it with we're teaching our cadets or our recruits false security of advancing a hose line with 4 people on that line. And those 4 people really don't have a lot of skills to do it. And they leave and they think they have mastered the craft for that week. And then when it's now loading or advancing hose line with 3 or 2 people on there, it's awakening. It's an eye-opening experience if you've never done it before. And they just spent 6 months doing something like that, and now they have to go to the real world and do it.
Yeah. And so for me, right, in our district too, we have 4 people at the station. It's a little messed up where the ambulance crew cross staffs the truck. So we have 4 people. If everybody's in service, the tailman and the chauffeur are going to be stretching the line, and then myself and the other ambulance guy, we're going to search the floor above and the fire floor.
Yeah.
And in education too is part of that, where where are victims most likely going to be found. Well, if you think about, if you have a first floor fire, leave that for the handline crew to maybe stumble upon somebody, right? Because they're not going to be searching; they're going to be stretching. I think searching off a handline is a lot like a quint. You're not really doing one thing really great.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, so the handline's never really searching. They're more or less stumbling upon people. And say at first floor fire, we leave the door open because we don't have enough people for a doorman. So they're going to be getting fresh air one way or another. So, myself, if it's a 2-story, myself and that other member, we're going to floor 2 to search the bedrooms because the smoke's been up there the longest, right? Smoke goes up, bad stuff goes up. We're going to search up there first because they've been impacted the longest.
Yep. Nail it, man. I love it. You make a great argument for it. I mean, Goffstown, New Hampshire, right? Their fire department had just realized or just showed about staffing, where they only had one firefighter show up to a residential structure fire. Everybody else was on calls. I mean,
Yep.
that's a scary ass thing. That's actually happening in our world. It's happening in our state, where
It's a reality for us.
it's a big reality. And it's my department operates a lot like your department. We cross staff trucks. And we have one station that's staffed with an ambulance, one station staffed with an engine. The rest are all cross staffed. And it's a scary real world thing that's happening. And again, Goffstown Fire, they're not lying about it, which is great. They're being very transparent. That they had one firefighter arrive on that truck for that initial response because everything else was tied up with other emergencies. That's the shit of it, right? If you're right in the middle of, it could be a toe pain, it can be a cardiac arrest, and you can't peel those members away for something that's going to be bigger and better. Right there, that's that person's emergency, and we can't say, well, sorry, you're going to have to call an Uber, or call a private ambulance because we got to go to a structure fire instead. They might, maybe the person with the toe pain might understand, or maybe they won't. That's what they paid for. They're paying those taxes for an ambulance, and
Yep.
you're cross-staffing that engine with an ambulance. Now that engine's out of service because they're on the ambulance. That's just the name of the game, and that is staffing. And I think departments lately have been really, really good with being transparent and letting their taxpayers know that, if you call for help, it might be another agency coming for you, or it might be longer than what you are usually expected. Or when a bigger situation happens, it's going to be maybe one truck for 10 minutes trying to do the best that they can do under extreme circumstances because we don't have the manpower for it. And that's all over. That's not just New Hampshire. That's nationwide.
Yeah.
And that's and like that article in Wakeman, Ohio, it's staffing matters, and having standards matter. And now citizens are coming up and going, this is unacceptable. If you can't do the job, then leave. The fact that they have 2 family members that were lost in that structure fire, and the reports were that grandmother was in the house, guy's on the phone telling them where she is, and you can hear her screaming, and they said the house was fully involved and they couldn't get her. And there's 2 sides to every story, and I don't know all the details, but all I know is that family members are angry. Family members are mad because their family is down 2 members, and they knew at one point they were alive, and then the fire department's telling them that they can't get them because of whatever conditions they had. And again, to that guy's point that suicide's not in the job, yeah, but I swore an oath that I am going to do everything in my power to get people out of the house, and there's no way am I going to stand outside and go, yeah, well, it's kind of fully involved. I'm sorry, I can't help you today. That's a reality, and our taxpayers, the citizens, are demanding more from us. So we need to make sure we have the manpower because they want the best. They want the elite, no matter where you live. They expect the best of the best. They don't care what gear you're wearing. They don't even care what trainings you went to or what hat you're wearing, or what T-shirt you got on for the day. When that emergency is at their house, they're expecting the best of the best to show up.
Yeah, and that's something I struggled with early on in my career. Was I would get so frustrated with staffing levels, and I'd bitch about it, right? Like, because that's what firemen do. And as of recent, there's a point where you kind of just got to be like, all right, enough's enough, right? And let the people's whose job it is to get us more staffing, whether union, administration, whatever, right? They all try, and if they're successful, great. If not, okay, then we have to succeed no matter what. We have to be successful no matter the level of our staffing. We have to be the best of the best no matter the level of our staffing. So it doesn't matter if you got 2 guys on the rig or 1 guy on the rig, you got to make something happen.
Yep.
Right. So, and the best way to do that is through experience and education, right? The more educated a fireman is the more dangerous he is in reality, right? To administration and to the fire.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a point where the bitching has to stop at some point, and we just have to focus on our job and our shift, and do the best that we can.
And don't bring problems, bring solutions.
Right.
Right. I mean, we're fixers, and we can bitch on the apparatus floor all we want, but that doesn't fix anything. And like you said, at the end of the day, we still have a job to do, and hopefully it gets done. But the departments around, I mean, nationwide, a lot of them are reactive, right? I mean, that's how we came up with our the history just shows, like, bad things happen, then we react to it, and then we make up those rules, and then we make up SOPs, or now we have better tactics because a bad thing happened, and we don't want history to repeat itself. A lot of times we can't pre-plan for those bad things to happen. It's history is is what has shown that we didn't plan ahead because we didn't know any better. But now we're seeing it, so guys are trying to pre-plan. They're trying to be proactive and making sure that history doesn't repeat itself. And whether it's manpower or certain equipment or skill sets that, I think in today's age, we're actually doing pretty well with not wanting to be reactive, with firefighter health, physical health, and mental health. I think we're being more proactive now than reactive, and we still have a lot of work to do, but I think we're doing better with that, and with tactics and strategies. And now, I mean, I was talking to my father-in-law. He didn't have half the shit that he had back in the day, right? All the conferences that are out there, all the presentations, lectures, and hands-on training, that wasn't available back when he was on the job. We have all this now, which is amazing. So we can be proactive about that because there's people out there wanting us to be better. And whether it's giving us workout plans or making us think about operational side of things and strategies and tactics, it's out there. And now it's at the tips of our fingers. And I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, it's social media has a benefit and a con to it, right? And, I think that's one of the benefits of social media that the people in positions to get us more staffing can use is they can say, hey, look, this town is the same exact size as us with the same amount of staffing, and look what just happened to them.
Yes.
Right. It's out there and it's happening, and I think a lot of the times, our counselors and, all that stuff, they are just so focused on, their little world that they live in, and they don't look at the outside, or the 30,000-foot view of everything.
Yeah.
So, that is one of the benefits to social media and people being transparent, like you brought up earlier, is putting this stuff out there, putting up your failures so other people can learn, because really that's where the lessons are learned, is through people's failures. And I've learned a ton from my failures, right? For example, we talked about it earlier, right? Being the asshole in the message.
Yep.
I learned, right, the hard way to not be an asshole, because that was me at one point. I was that dude of, hey, dickhead, why'd you leave this here? Why'd you do that? That was me. I was that guy.
So you became humbled.
Right.
Yeah. That's a hard pill to swallow, bro. If you've never had to deal with it before, and you get later in life, and then you have a moment or an experience that now makes you super humbled, it can cripple a person. It really can, because if you've on that high the whole time and you had a huge ego for like half of your career, and all of a sudden you have a humbling moment, it can almost break you.
Yeah, almost.
It's tough. It is tough. I mean, again, if you've never had that experience, I've been there. I had it have it to me, and I'm a better person for it. Humility is an amazing tool, is an amazing skill set to have, and it's a hard lesson to learn. It takes almost a lifetime to figure that out.
Yeah.
So that's props to you for actually taking that moment and applying it to your daily operations of being a better person, a better officer. Yeah. So let's talk about, you also said you like to talk about the limited manpower ops based on crew size. And he said, especially for pump operations and actions and hose deployment. We talk about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, and this is all opinion based, stuff, right? You can train a chauffeur to do a lot of things. First and foremost, I think we need to define what dead manning the pump is, right? Because a lot of people hear, oh, we dead man the pump, and they're like, why would you do that? Right? That's dangerous. And I think we need
First
to
off, for people who aren't listening, tell them what dead manning the pump means to you.
Yeah, so we need to define what dead manning the pump is, right? And that just means that no one is at the pump panel watching your gauges, right? Whether they're packing up and going inside, or throwing ladders, or doing whatever, right? So dead manning the pump is you do not have a person at the pump panel watching the gauges, which is beneficial for fireground operations because we can add a person, right, to maybe check off one of those fireground objectives if that's what your goal is, right? For me, right, I think we've been training our chauffeurs to kind of the wrong way for a long time. Right, we in the past, right, stretch lines pulled, charge a line. Your next goal is water supply, and then after that, you're throwing ground ladders on opposite ends of the building, whether A and C or B and D, and then you're pretty much gopher after that, getting whatever's needed. I think we really need to evaluate the job of the chauffeur, and for me, looking at the fire rescue survey and seeing that search stat of pre simultaneous and post knockdown is, I think our chauffeur needs to assist with the first line, right? Because the fire goes as the first line goes. So if he can help stretch or move that heel man up a pinch point and be at that door, I think that is going to pay dividends off for the hose for fire attack.
Mm-hmm.
And it obviously, right, this comes with education. And the recent FSRI studies, right, that said, it was 247 gallons or something like that to extinguish 2 bedrooms of fire over 15 fires. Most of us have 750 to 1,000 gallons of water on our engines.
Yeah.
So we can put those fires out time and time again with just our tank water.
Right.
So I think the job of the chauffeur, and right, then you can bring into this the next due chauffeur, right? The next due chauffeur's job is going to be water supply. And they're going to be hooking, laying in from the hydrant, or if that engine already laid in, getting it connected to the first due pump, and then, getting that line charge and getting water supply.
Yeah. The pump man's, he's definitely one of the busiest people on the fire grounds.
Yeah.
He's a lot to do. He's got to make sure that hose bed is clear. He's got to make sure, like you said, I think working that front door, helping that heel man get all those pinch points and getting that 50 feet in or even more, fantastic. And then staging tools, whatever they need right at the door, making sure they have what they need, and then going around, throwing ladders, going around, making sure job is done, making sure they have everything. And honestly, our head's got to be on a swivel too. I think it's the engine man that needs to, the pump operator is looking at conditions, especially if you're the first due truck and no one else is there yet and you got guys inside that building. I want to make sure I'm looking at conditions. I'm making sure that nothing's changing from that outside that they're missing on the inside. That's a huge world out there that we got to see while they're operating inside.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is all, department dependent or crew dependent, or
sure.
Even officer dependent on what tactics you want to do, right? But dead manning the pump to go set up an OV position, right? Go get ready for OV to coordinate with the first due line to make conditions better inside.
Absolutely.
Right? Because with the new pressure they've been around for a while, but with the pressure governors, right? You can, if you're going to know you have a problem when your RPM spike.
Yeah.
You're going to hear it. Like, you can hear it throughout the fire ground of, if you lost water supply, you'll know. Right. And, I think another part of the pressure governors that isn't trained on is it doesn't take a whole lot of air to get that thing to shut down either. So like we train our chauffeurs to run with the drains open, the MIV drains open, so that way they don't have to remember to open it, right? They can charge the line and the air is already bleeding. So that way when they open their MIV, they don't get that slug of air and get the pump shut down, and then the crews inside lose water.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good standard to have. I usually keep mine open as well when I'm getting fed water, or to make sure I don't have that initial, like you said, that slug of air and it's going to start bogging down my engine or possibly shut it down. And those definitely comes with learning and experience and taking the time to understand your trucks. I think any engine operator that's worth his weight in salt there would know his rig inside and out, but know like also not just how it drives, but just those little things of, I'm going to keep this open, I'm going to close that, or listening for a spike. Listening is a huge tool as an engine operator. And when things are going crazy on the fire ground, that's one of the things we have to keep our ears open for is, whether that engine starts revving up and something's wrong, either water's is now short supply or something else mechanically is happening, it's a huge world. And being short staffed, the engine operator is going to be one of the busiest guys with keeping his ears and eyes open for sure.
Yep. Let me ask you a question. Do
Yes,
you,
sir.
when you pump a rig, do you leave your tank to pump open or closed once you get hard water?
I leave it slightly cracked. I don't open it all the way, but I'll leave it slightly cracked just in case something bad happens, and that hydrant or whatever else is short of water supply. At least I know I have my tank going, so if I need water, it's gonna continuously feed. I know some people like to close it, but that way if something bad happens or they're losing water, they know it before something bad happens. But if I have guys operating on the inside, I like to keep it open because if I end up losing that water supply, I can still continuously give them that water off my tank.
Yeah, absolutely right. So that's the reason I train guys to leave it all the way open, so that way if we do lose that hard water, the guys inside don't lose water, and we can communicate to them, hey, you're on tank water now.
Exactly.
And I think, and this is a misconception, and I think the manufacturers of fire apparatus kind of benefited us without us knowing it. So like a lot of Pierces are pre-plumbed with a one-way valve on the tank to pump.
Mm-hmm.
So that way, when you have hard water, that one-way valve closes and you're not backfeeding the tank.
Yeah.
But that works in a way where, okay, we lose water, that valve opens from the pressure of the water, and we don't have that skip in water supply issues to the first in hand line. I know like our Rosenbauers don't have it. So it's a matter of looking at the spec and seeing, just going to that tank to pump section and seeing what's there, and and I think that's a huge benefit, because even if you leave it all the way open and you have hard water and you start to see your tank lights drop, okay, well, what's that telling you, right? That's telling you that you need more water coming in.
Right.
You need
You're
to
pumping
figure
more than
something
a hydrant can give you.
right. You need to figure something else out. Instead of just you know being being stagnant with your chauffeur abilities, right? And just, oh yeah, we're going to pull this lever, pull that lever. Just look at the spec, see what it says, because that's a huge benefit for the guys on the hand line. Because I know if I'm on the end of it, I'm going to be pissed if we lose water.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to be really pissed off and coming out pretty hot. So
Yeah. Physically and mentally, you'd be pretty pissed off and
yeah,
hot. When in my previous department, I give them a lot of credit because we didn't run an ambulance. We did a lot of training on hose advancement and pump training, drafting, and hydrant operations, and we did a bunch of it, and it made me better for it. As much crap as I give my previous administration, one thing that he taught very well was, I don't want lever pullers. I want you to be able to think what's happening with that pump. If you're not getting water, why aren't you getting water? Or if that's revving up, what could it possibly be? I want you to be able to be thinkers on the fire ground, and pump operators. I want you to be the best that you can be. And I just don't want you to pull a lever and that water comes out. You need to know the reason why it's happening and where the drains are and where the intakes are, and just the whole ins and outs of it. And that was one of the things I remembered the most of one of his statements was, I don't want you to just be lever pullers, you need to be operators. And I do remember that, and I really do take that very seriously, that it's a humongous responsibility. I didn't want to be a driver for a long time because of the responsibility of it. One, getting your crew to the scene safely. Instead of just me driving, I've got 4 other people on that truck with me. That's a scary thing. I'm responsible for 4 other people's lives and other people's lives on the road with this humongous apparatus. And if I crash it, then the people aren't getting help to who needs it. And now it's out of service, and that fire is going to go beyond our control because, for a small department that we have, that help's not coming anytime soon once that truck crashes. So that was always in my back of my mind, that I didn't want to do it for a long time. And then pumping the scene, and now you're responsible. If you screw up, you're setting the tone. Like you said, as the first line goes, so does the fire. Well, that has a lot to do with the pump operator. I mean, the guys on the other end who are on that nozzle, if they don't have water, it's not their fault. You're providing that life source, and you're providing that weapon to be functional. And that was a scary thing. I didn't want to be have that responsibility for quite some time. So it took me a few years to actually want to drive and actually be a pump operator because of the added responsibility. Plus, it's way more fun to actually, take a hose line
Right.
and go inside a building, right? But honestly, when I started driving and pumping, now I realized how much fun this can be, and it's exciting to do that. And I'm a better person for it from my previous department because we did train really, really hard on that. And we trained a lot where we were like in nauseum of it. Like, oh, I don't want to do this again. We just did this 3 days ago. And now it's a week, literally did it like every week, but it definitely made us very strong operators. And I love the fact that you're very passionate about that you need to take pride again, like we talking about. And as a pump operator, you need to take pride in knowing how to do that job because man, on the fire ground, that's probably one of the most important jobs to have because if you can't do it, then the job's not going to get done. You
Right.
know, the hydrant's just going to sit there and be just an inanimate object with nothing to do unless you actually provide something to it.
Right. Yeah. It's the chauffeur role is such an influential part of the engine company that I think it really gets overlooked a lot of the time, especially by the younger members of the fire service, right? Is they can make or break the first line, the whole operation. And if you have a real go-getter or a get shit doneer, as the Hunt brothers like to say, you know, they can make a very big impact and make your fire ground go well.
Yep, absolutely. And that goes with, pre-planning, knowing your buildings, knowing where to park the truck, knowing that you're not going to park, you're not going to block the aerial, knowing that you're going to want to park in a certain way so they can get a nice clean stretch. I mean, that because the officer's got a lot of shit to do, as right in that front seat, you have a lot on your mind. If you got a good ripper going, the last thing you want to have to do is tell your driver exactly how to drive and how to get there and where to park and this and that. Like you got to get geared up. You got to tell your crew what your expectations are, where you're going to go in and deal with other things going on. And you want a shit dunner to be able to get in there and drive and wheel that rig and be able to park in an efficient manner that's going to get the whole job done. Because if you park in a certain way, not park, but if you do placement and you place your apparatus in a certain spot, it's going to fuck up the whole scene. And then everyone's going to be pissed off because that operator placed his vehicle in a manner that's going to fuck up the whole entire scene and hiccup the operation.
Yeah.
So it's a lot.
Yeah. It's a lot that people don't realize.
Yep. So I didn't ask about your story because I completely just went right over it. I was so excited to talk to you. I skimmed over the history of you. You said you had a story about you always wanted to be a fireman since you were small. You said you had a story about that. I was curious about that.
Yeah. So when I was like a kid, from the time I can remember, right? So 3-4 years old to when I got on the job, right? It was truly a dream come true. And it's always funny when people see this picture of me because they're like, oh no shit, you're one of the ones who lived out their childhood dreams. And like, so this goes back to like my family is a family of service. So my father, who passed away when I was 5 years old, he did 21 years in the Army. My mother was a nurse for 40 years.
Wow.
My brother was on the job in Brattleboro, Vermont, for 10 years. His wife is a nurse practitioner. My other brother always wanted to be a police officer. He never lived out that dream, but he still does service. He volunteers at the polls. He volunteers for his kids' PTO, PTA stuff, all that. His wife's a doctor. My wife's a nurse.
Wow.
We just have a family of service, and I take a lot of pride in my family, in the service that we have provided to not only this country, but our communities. But so when I was a kid, my mom had her friend make a black jacket with yellow stripes, axe loop. So I had the toy axe. And then she brought home a oxygen, non-rebreather. And then my brother took two 2-liter bottles, glued them together, put the hose in them, put some rope on them for my air pack. My dad, after the Army, worked for Simplex before they went out of business. And one of the guys that he worked in his office with used to be a fireman. And so he had this helmet hanging up in his office. So one day my dad walked in, and was like, hey, my kid's really into this stuff. What can I buy that helmet off of you or whatever? And he's like, here you go. Right. So, I mean, it's just like, I have pictures of just sitting on the couch and with my dad, and I'd be all dressed up and we'd watch Backdraft. Right? I watched Backdraft at 4 years old.
That's awesome.
Obviously I didn't know the storyline behind it.
Right.
I just wanted to watch it because of the fire and the fire trucks.
Sure.
And it's really a dream come true to do what I do and, and I think my new dream, right, from this moment on is to just help people reach theirs.
That's a beautiful goal to have, man. I think that's why a lot of us teach. I know that's why I teach. I love giving back. I love making people better. And I think it makes you better, spreading that good word, spreading the gospel of firemanship and love for what we do. I think that helps you. Like, I could tell, like, you don't talk down to people, and especially people who don't know the whys and how we're doing these skills. And the fact that you love it so much with your childhood story of it's all you ever wanted to do, it makes you appreciate what you have even more. And to be able to spread that knowledge to the youth of why you love the job and why you're teaching and why you're giving back is because I want to make you better because of how much love I have for the service, because people made me better. I think that's a beautiful message. I think that's a beautiful goal to have. That we need more of that. And I think we're getting more of that, for sure. And I think I love the history that you came from, man. That's the way to be.
Yeah. Like there's no rich people in our family.
Yeah. Being a public service, it's not a rich man's living. That's for sure. We survive off of overtime and that's how we live. And unfortunately, that's just the name of the game. But we didn't sign up for this job to be rich men. It's not a white collar job. It's blue collar, and we get blue collar pay. That's just unfortunate. It's the way it's going to be. But I think we're okay with that as long as we get to do the job that we love and work with the people that we really appreciate, and continuously give back to the ones who want to do our jobs, because they're going to be the ones to replace us. That's for sure. And we want people in the right positions.
Yeah, it's that whole blue collar movement is interesting. I think it's got to be. I think a lot of times it's interpreted the wrong way. I think a lot of the interpretation is just, oh, yep, it's a blue collar job, right? You go to work, you do the same thing every day. Well, that's not our job, right?
It's different every day.
It's different every day, and you have to be educated, right? I think a lot of you have to be educated in this job. Otherwise, you're 100%. Going to fail. And hopefully it never gets there, right? But at some point it's going to happen, and you have to be educated. You have to keep learning. And if you don't, hopefully you have that person in your life that tells you, hey, time to hit the books, or time to watch, FSRI videos or whatever, right? Hopefully they have that person in their life to make that impact.
And I think that's people like you and me, people like that go to conferences and go to these outside trainings, people that read these service books and watch instructional videos like the ULFSRI. Man, I honestly, the FSRI stuff, I'm on that religiously. I'm always getting the information from them. I think it's a fantastic source of information, and I'm always spreading that to people. Like we were just up at the academy to teach water mapping and water placement, and I made sure, like, if you guys need to go on this website, and they have a lot of useful information. You don't have to be career, volunteer, whatever you are. Just go on that website and look at the data, the knowledge, the information they have on there. It pays a lot to do that. And if we didn't give a crap about our jobs, then we wouldn't be on it, and these things wouldn't be popular, if you will. That's why they're here, and that's why they're gaining momentum, because I think the more of us want to learn and be better at what we're doing. And I think the ones, like you said, the ones that don't care, they need to leave. To be honest with you, if you don't want to educate yourself and be better and give that to your crews and the people that you owe it to, then maybe it's time to retire, or maybe find just another job to do. And like, I agree too. I think the blue collar statement is accurate. It is a blue collar job, but I think the terminology has definitely changed, where you have to be smart. You have to be educated. You're not doing the same thing anymore. The fire service is fluid. It's constantly changing. Building construction is changing. Our gear is changing. The water application, everything is changing. And if you don't read up on it, if you don't educate yourself, you're going to be left in the dust. And you're not working in a for lack of a better word, you're not working in a factory anymore with no windows and doing the mundane pressing machine, over and over again. Like you said, it's going to be changing every shift, and we have to be able to work around that and work with it. So
Yeah, absolutely,
you know,
100%.
so you did the Explorer Academy, not the Academy, but you did the Keene Explorers. How long did you do the Explorers for?
I was in the Keene Explorers for probably 3 years.
Oh wow, okay.
They just met once a month, did training. I do ride in time. I rode in during like Pumpkin Fest and stuff. That was always fun. It's always a joy.
I bet that was a
Uh,
blast. Yeah,
yeah, it was cool. But if you look at the Keene Fire Department, the majority of our members were Keene Explorers.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, so we have a very, like I said, right, the southwest part of the state is it's a weird part of the state where like if you're from here, there's like this magnetic pole back here, and if you're not from here, there's almost this magnetic push away. So
Hmm.
out of 44 people, there's only 3 people on the department that are not from this area.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
That is really impressive. That says something about that area for sure.
Yeah.
I did
But
not
it's
know
so
that.
interesting, right? Because we're not getting the candidates from Concord, Manchester, right? We're not getting them because why would they come here, right? They have no idea about it. It is what it is. Uh,
Yeah.
which is a big part in our changes in recruitment. Obviously COVID put a hurt on the Explorers. It kind of disbanded. We're getting it back going again. We have like 20 kids in the high school Fire One right now. With a couple prospects coming out, and it's we have to invest in our area because it's proven that we don't get candidates from anywhere else.
Wow.
So
Do you think it's like that's weird. Like, do you think it's a recruitment thing? Do you think it's like getting word out? It's
I
interesting that you're not getting a lot of that resources from the outside of that part of the state.
yeah, I think I think a lot of it is just why do I want to go there? Right? The only
Hmm.
thing in this area is Keene State. You know what I mean? So if didn't play sports here or didn't go to college here, why would you want to move here? I mean, the only other cool thing we have in this area is Mount Monadnock.
Yeah.
Most climbed mountain in the world, basically. But it's really its own, like it's literally like a magnet. If you're from here, it pulls you, and if you're not from here, it pushes you away. And I don't know, I don't think there's really any fix to it because I mean everywhere's having recruitment issues. you
100%.
know so I don't really think it's like a recruitment thing. I literally just think it's just people not wanting to live here, from the other parts of the state.
You just think it's because there's just, like you said, there's really just have the mountains and some state parks, but it's kind of removed from a lot of the fun stuff, if you will,
Right.
of the state. Like, it's interesting. I really didn't know there was that much of a not disconnect, but really not much of a draw to the Keene area. That's definitely a hard thing to try to figure out how to get that recruitment up and get more of the younger folk to Keene area. I honestly enjoy Keene very much. Living in Milford, I'm not that far away, and um, I enjoy driving through it.
Yeah. Right. Most people drive through it to go to
Drive
New
through it.
York. Yeah.
I've driven through it to go to Walpole, New Hampshire, because it's got a beautiful bed and breakfast. But I don't visit Keene very often. But the parts I've seen is pretty cool. I know like you got a nice, I think it's like a mountain bike course at one of the
Yeah.
parks there. So that's actually pretty cool. A lot of people do
Yeah.
the BMX over there.
Yep. New skate park just went in, so we'll be going back there again.
Yeah, man, that's definitely interesting. Well, Jake, I appreciate you, man. This has been fun talking with you. Is there anything else you want to bring up? Any other events you're going to be going to, or conferences you're attending, or any other kind of stuff you want to drop on us?
So shameless plug, keep an eye out for it. Monadnock Fire Symposium.
Okay,
It's going to probably be happening in May. Myself and a couple other guys from this area really want to bring a conference to this area for everybody.
man, you just like piqued me right there because I wish we could get a conference going in New Hampshire. We need it, and going to all those other conferences I've been going to, and every time I travel with somebody from the state and we go down to a conference, this immediately what we say is we need to have something up here. We
Yeah.
need to bring this information up here and have something going.
Yeah. So have you heard of the Meadowwood training facility?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So they're back up and kind of getting it back going again.
Oh, that's
Uh,
fun.
Yep. So there's a board of directors and all that stuff. So that's hopefully where we're going to hold it is at Meadowwood. It's going to be in May at some point, and there's probably going to be 3 different tracks, like a fireground operations track where you're going to do hose line, ladders, and search for 2 days, and then another track of like extrication and hazmat, and then an EMS track probably.
Dude, that is fantastic. We need to have that. That's been a big push. I've been reaching out to people and talking to people, and like, I don't know what we have to do to get it going, because let's be real, we're not gonna be able to have it at the New Hampshire Fire Academy.
Right.
It's too much red tape.
Yeah.
And we need a place to do it. And if we can get New Hampshire on the map for people who want to come up here for conferences, to see how we do and what we love to do and how we do our job, man, it'd be fantastic. I'm all aboard for that one. So yeah, you have to keep me abreast of that. I'd love to know more about it for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's very exciting. Man, I love it. All right, I love what you got to bring, Jake. You're a dialed in dude, and I love it. So thank you so much, Jake Poulin, Jake of all trades, training company. If you need, reach out to him. He's available on social media. Just go ahead and he's always available to reach out to people. He might be busy working and family stuff, but from my experience dealing with Jake, he's always been ready to answer back and help out whenever he can. So thank you, Jake, so much from the Keene Fire Department. You stay right there. We're just going to end this recording. Thank you all for tuning in.